Hi Year 12 and welcome to your section 4 on your extended response, your feedback video. Hopefully you have had a chance to have a quick skim of your response and re-familiarise yourself with the questions. So obviously you were given two options here. Both were evaluate. Okay, one focusing on this idea of corporate social responsibility and operational strategies, and the other was talking about responses that business managers may adopt when responding to influences on finance. So looking at finance influences and strategies of your choosing. Quite heavily, the cohort preferred the corporate social responsibility question. Only about 10 students out of the 55 chose to do the finance question, which I suppose I was a little bit surprised at, seeing as though you've had more time with the finance content as well as your first assessment task being on this. So what we're going to do is, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to pause this video and you are going to read your task. You are going to reread what you wrote in exam conditions. Now, don't be too harsh on yourself. You did do it under exam conditions, but you really need to have a look at that in-text feedback, because a lot of the times when I was marking, I would be going, why haven't they done this? Or why is this here? And, around structure and all of those things. And the in-text feedback, I would argue, is some of the most valuable. So pause now. It may take you 5 to 10 minutes. There is absolutely no issue with that. But pause now, reread your work, okay, taking note of my in-text feedback. Okay, hopefully you have read your task, you've read your in-text feedback, and now you may have that feedback sheet in front of you. Using what you've read and using your feedback, your individual personal feedback sheet, I want you to create a 3 to 4 sentence summative comment. So traditionally your teachers maybe would have done this for you. What I'm asking you to do is to really think about, after reading your response and after reading your in-text feedback, as well as that ticker box feedback that you got as well, okay, and that scale, what areas should you be focusing on, and what I suppose is the summation, okay, or the summative comment that you can create. Now, to do that, I've given you some sentence starters. You may be able to use these, okay, you may be able to use 4 of these and apply them to your response, or you may use them as inspiration and come up with your own. So have a look at these sentence starters now. You may need to change it. If it's a positive and yours wasn't so great, you may need to change it from a positive word to a negative, or vice versa. So have a go now, please, at writing your 3 to 4 sentence summative comment of your response. Guys, we're actually going to come back to this, and this should really be, I suppose, that big umbrella comment of what are the big things that I need to focus on in this idea of taking this assessment and moving forward. It's not about just going, all right, well, in my half yearly, my response lacks structure. The thought process should be, in my half yearly, my response lacks structure, but in my third task, I'm going to. Okay, so it's about that, and I know you've heard it all before, it's about that idea of that growth mindset and thinking about things constructively rather than things in a negative sense and in the past tense. So we'll get into the feedback, and I've done it in these 5 sections: content, case study, terms and concepts, structure, and then the mark as a whole. I'm going to look at both questions at the same time, and you then need to go through and have a look at which bit of content relates to yours. Guys, as a whole cohort, there were some really great responses, and then there were some responses that really left a little bit to be desired. My greatest concern when I was marking this was the fact that people were providing content that was just completely incorrect. Now, in saying this, there were lots of you that provided the correct content. Great. If you provided content that was not from the syllabus, guys, it is not good enough. We are halfway through the HSC. You know how important knowing your syllabus is in business studies. There are now no excuses, except I wasn't prepared. I didn't revise my syllabus enough. And they're the conversations that are going to be had at parent-teacher interviews to get you to know your syllabus by our third and fourth tasks. So what I want you to have a look at here is what I've put is all the syllabus content that is relevant to each question. Okay? I don't want you to highlight what you wanted to use or what you thought you were going to use or what you would now use, but I want you to highlight the content that you actually used. Past tense. What syllabus content was in your response? Okay? So did you refer to this idea of legal v ethical? Which strategies did you use, and did you use the correct terminology? Now, for those of you doing finance, okay, same thing. What influences did you choose? What responses or strategies did you choose? But most importantly, did you use the correct content? If you wrote about something that isn't here, it's not the right content. Okay, you know business studies is quite narrow in that sense, but you've got to work to it. You've got to know your syllabus. So have a go at highlighting what areas you actually referred to in your response. All right, so this should now have your highlighting on it to show you. Some of you may have very little highlighted, and that was kind of my point. For a fair few of you, you did not provide correct strategies, or you provide finance strategies in the operations question. We just can't do that type of stuff. A few reflection questions for you to do. Did you use the correct syllabus areas? This could be a yes, a no, or a somewhere in between. If you didn't use correct syllabus dot points, why? What stopped you from using the syllabus dot points? Was it that you didn't know it? Was it that you tried to bring in outside ideas which maybe then convoluted your response? Was it the fact that you got confused between finance and operations syllabus? Why did you not use the correct syllabus dot points? You really need to think hard about that and give an answer. If you are saying, yes, I did use the right syllabus areas, did you provide enough detail? Did you give enough specific content? Or were your ideas quite general? Or did you just mention them, meaning that they were actually quite limited in their nature? This question, I suppose, is for those people that are in that D to E range, okay? If you're looking at your mark and you're thinking, wow, this mark is really below what I had wanted, was it because you didn't provide the correct content? Because if it is, it's not your structure, it's not anything else, but it's the fact that you literally wrote about the wrong stuff. How are you going to fix this for the trial and then the HSC? Because if getting the content wrong was your biggest limitation, we need to fix this ASAP. So really have a think about this question if that applies to you. Some of you are going to be listening going, no, I got the right content down and I knew my syllabus, and great job. Okay, so that's my feedback and your reflection on the content. Next was the case study. What I want you to do is I want you to pause this video in a second and literally highlight all the case study information you provided. I don't mean every time you just said Qantas, but I mean literal case study information that showed the marker that you knew information on that case study. So pause now and do that. Okay, you should have a response that has some highlighting. Some people's may have very little, some people's may have a lot. Using this scale, did you provide little to no case study, or was your case study integrated in all sections? Think about it. Where would you rate your own use of case study? Okay. You might want to make a little note of this under here or something. From me, guys, it was very sporadic, the use of case study. Some responses, it was integrated all the way through, and other responses had literally none. One, I suppose, general comment I will give to you as a cohort is that it's got to have substance. Your case study information cannot be tokenistic. It can't just be a reference in passing to Qantas if you're not actually giving any real quality information that links to the case study. I would say, one, okay, as above, get the content right, but two is, do you actually have the depth of knowledge of your case study, or is it very, very general? Okay, and that's something that for each individual student, it's going to be a different answer. So really, if you're a 7 or below, we've got some work to do, okay? Even if you're an 8. What are 3 practical strategies that you are going to do to improve this in the future? It may be read more articles, but my question would be, where are you going to get those articles from? It might be follow my business on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. There's nothing wrong with doing that. You will get information on there from them. It might be the fact that you're going to create a Samsung wall in your bedroom, and you're going to have all these great quotes. Something practical that you are going to do to help you improve, one, your retention of case study information, but then two, your application of this information. So have a go at filling that in. Both questions asked you to evaluate, and I'm going to explore this a little bit later on. But did you provide any evidence or data to allow you to evaluate? And for most of you guys, my feedback is going to be that your answer was no. You mentioned the case study. You said the case study, blah, 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 links to this. But did you actually provide any evidence or data to show a level of evaluation? So this idea that you could then judge on positive or negative, or judge on extent. Okay, and if you didn't, why? Was it that you forgot? Was it that you just didn't know it? Okay, because if we don't know the why we didn't provide it, how are we going to fix it? Okay, and our whole aim by this feedback is not just to say, well, no, I didn't do it, but it's, no, I didn't do it, but this is why, and this is how I'm going to fix it for next time, for task 3. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go at these 2 questions. If not, pause now. Alrighty, the third part of my feedback is on terms and concepts. And guys, to be honest, this should be our strong point. And I would argue that it was done better than the first 2 areas, content and case study, but so it should be. You've been doing business studies now for, a year, a full year and a term. So you've had 6 terms of business studies. So really, you should have this business studies language coming through in your response. What I'm going to ask you to do is to fill this table in using your response. And I want you to write in this bit here a subject-specific term. Okay, so it might be profitability management or profit maximization. But it's not just about saying, yes, I mentioned this term. I want you then to say whether you explored this concept, whether you outlined it, so you kind of defined it, or you drew out some type of information, or if you just identified it and then moved on. Okay, so what you're going to try and do is, hopefully you've at least used 9 subject-specific terms. Hopefully you've got lots more to pick from. But really have a look of whether you explored the concept or the term, whether you outlined it or identified it. Have a go now. Okay, you should have all of these filled in now. What I suppose my feedback is to the cohort is that you guys are really great at identifying, and maybe you can see that yourself from your own work once now that these tables are filled in. I would say that you guys have done a good job at identifying, mentioning SST, terms and concepts. Where we struggle, guys, is, are we actually exploring them? Are we applying them? Not just mentioning them briefly and then moving on. Are we using the term in conjunction with the content as well as applying it to the case study? And a lot of the times, guys, this is what is stopping us from maybe moving our students who got a 12, 13, 14 to a 15, 16, 17, because concepts are being mentioned or identified but are not really being explored. So have a bit of a personal reflection. Are you really happy with your use of subject-specific terminology and concepts? Or are you a little bit disappointed with how you use these concepts or terms or didn't use them in your response? Okay, so have a bit of a think. Now remember, it's not just about being sad or it's not just about being happy. It's about thinking about how we can use this reflection to move us forward. Okay, structure. My feedback on structure, I'm going to look in 3 areas here. Whole text, paragraph, and sentence. And then I'm going to get you to do some work on paragraph and sentence structure. So, let's start with whole text. Overall, guys, you've done a really good job. Okay, most of you had an introduction, a body with several paragraphs, and a conclusion. Great job. Okay, so your education here at Clancy has taught you a whole text extended response structure. Great. One point I will say is to remember that your conclusion should not contain any new information and that really it should be the shortest part of your response. A couple of sentences will suffice. It does not need to be extensive. One thing, guys, I was a bit disappointed with, to be completely honest with you, was plan. I was really disappointed by the fact that not many of you used a plan. And I think that by not planning, it actually impacted the quality of the introductions. And we're going to move on to that in a minute. So our introductions, guys, set the scene for the marker. A HSC marker has been at school all day, is at home at night, reading your handwritten script on a computer screen. Okay, your response is scanned. They're tired. If your handwriting's bad, it's hard for them to read. And then the first thing that they read is your introduction. We've got to improve the quality. We've got to make ourselves start at a band 5 or 6, even if the rest of the response maybe isn't going to be sustained at that level. So we're going to do a little bit of an activity now for that. So have a look here. You need to reread your introduction, okay? And I need you to answer these questions. Does your introduction clearly identify all syllabus areas? Does it state the syllabus that it's going to explore in the introduction? Yes or no? Does your introduction clearly state the case study or studies that the response is going to use? Yes or no? For lots of you guys, it's no, and it shouldn't be. Does your introduction actually outline or kind of draw out any of these key concepts, providing a little bit of bulk, okay? And then the last question, has your introduction made any evaluative statement? Has it got this idea of a thesis? Yes, it has been effective in Qantas as a result of. Have you actually evaluated, shown any judgment language in your introduction? Yes or no? Pretty much, guys, if you answered no to any of the above questions, you need to rewrite your introduction because it's not where we want it to be. These 4 things here, these 4 questions, kind of provide you a bit of a checklist or a basis of what your introduction should include. So I want you to pause now, use your introduction that you wrote, use these questions, and rewrite an introduction that you think is addressing these questions and it is at a higher level than the one that you wrote for your own exam. So if you can do this now, please. Okay, so hopefully you've now got a well-written introduction that addresses these 4 areas that I've identified for you. The other paragraph bit of feedback I would give you is that most of you have this peel structure well done. It's something that you've been taught for years now, and if anything, I think that if you're sitting at a 16 or a 17, maybe you need to look at the variety of your peel structures and think about how you can increase the sophistication and integration of ideas, which may mean breaking free a little bit for those students who are already sitting at that high B or low A level. Okay, how to push into that higher A may come through variety and sophistication of your paragraphs. Topic sentences or points, whatever we want to call them. Guys, we've got to work on them. So many of you are using very simple sentences or sentences that are not even complete, and that's the first sentence of a paragraph or the first sentence of the introduction. You need to be using compound and complex sentences to show ideas and connect concepts in that first sentence, and this will help you develop sophistication. So what you're going to do is you're going to have a go at this activity. You are going to rewrite the following topic sentences. Some may need to be developed into a complex sentence. Some may need case study added, or others may need to have evaluation integrated. But these are real topic sentences that students used. So, outsourcing is a strategy that is adopted by many businesses. You need to create a more sophisticated topic sentence. Do you need to turn it into a complex sentence? Probably. Do you need to integrate case study? Definitely. Okay. Could you add evaluation? See how you go. So do the same things for 2 and 3, please, now. Once you've done those, the fourth one, I want you to choose a topic sentence that you think is quite poor from your response. Write it out here and then rewrite it using these ideas that we've just mentioned. Okay? All right, guys, your topic sentence activity should now be completed. The last bit of feedback I want to give you on sentences is around clarity. A lot of the time, our sentences don't make sense. And it's really hard in exam conditions, and I completely appreciate that. But a lot of the time, it's because our sentences are too long. And I'm talking half a paragraph in some instances is one sentence. It makes it really hard for the marker to read, and at times, guys, the marker loses the point of what you're trying to say. So please make sure that when you are writing that you are thinking about your punctuation. Okay, it's really important, and it helps in terms of this idea of clarity. All right. Last but not least is the mark, and I say last but not least, but it kind of is the least most important part of this feedback in terms of value add. If you focus on your mark out of 20 and nothing else, we really haven't done a very good job of this feedback process, because what we get from this is the fact that you can use this document, your work, to help you prepare for task 3 and task 4. Some of you are going to feel disappointed. Some of you are going to feel upset. Some of you are going to feel angry. Some of you are going to feel excited or happy. Emotional responses are natural and they're always going to happen. But you can't let that emotional reaction dictate and take over, okay, how useful this half yearly can be to help you move forward in business studies. So, circle a face that kind of shows how you feel about the mark you receive for section 4. And I suppose really what I hope that you get from this feedback are practical ideas of what do you have to do for next time. So after doing all those activities, after writing your summative comment, after looking at your topic sentences, SST, all of that stuff that you've just been working on, what are 3 things that you've taken from this? Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, you may want to look back to your summative comment that you wrote yourself. Okay, you might see 2 or 3 clear things in there that you want to make a priority. But guys, don't write get a better mark. Or if you want to write that, okay, that's actually not going to be very helpful, because my question to you is going to be, how do you plan to get that better mark? What are you going to do, or what are you going to do differently to help you get that better mark? All right, guys, I hope that you have really reflected on your section 4, okay? I know for some of you, it's your least favorite section of the paper, but it's something that we've got to continue to work on. So if you have any questions about the feedback, okay, or about anything to do with the section 4, please don't hesitate to come and speak to me about it. All right, thanks, guys.